Great to have you join us this morning. It is Wednesday, July 18th, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Shin Se-min, and these are the stories we're following at this hour. South Korea's economic policy plan for the second half of the year will be announced in the coming hours. What's the policy direction for a country still digesting the aftermath of next year's hefty minimum wage increase? The intense heat wave here in Korea takes a heavy toll, claiming 6 lives and sending hundreds of people to hospital with heat-related illnesses. Worst still, the mercury looks set to remain stubbornly high for the foreseeable future. South Korea condemns Japan's revision of its education material to step up its false territorial claims over Korea's East Sea island of Dokdo. Now, this follows Tokyo's announcement that it's amending its teacher's guides for use at high schools in Japan. Our starting points this morning, the South Korean government's economic policy plans for the latter half of the year. In about an hour or so from now, Finance Minister Kim Dong-yeon will be holding an economic-related ministers' meeting to finalize the detailed policies and budgets. It's highly likely the plans will center on measures for the country's low-income earners to cope with the potential side effects from this year's and next year's hefty minimum wage hikes. And we'll be bringing you all the details as we get them during our next newscast at noon Korea time. The Peter Pan syndrome is a psychological concept where adults do not want or feel unprepared to grow up. Now, experts say this trend can be seen in South Korea's business sectors as there's tendency for some small and mid-sized companies to actively avoid growing due to the extra regulations and taxes they'll be hit when they make the step up. Our Won Jung-hwan tells us more.
Despite years of government efforts to remove red tape that hinders investment and employment, a web of regulations continues to hamper business activities in South Korea, some even discouraging local firms from expanding. When smaller enterprises grow to become mid-sized enterprises, they face some difficulties in terms of losing state support and face increased regulations, prompting some to actively take steps to avoid expanding. According to the CEO of a local company, which became a mid-sized enterprise in April, government support has dried up, tax breaks have evaporated, and regulations have become much more restrictive.
Tax benefits for investment in equipment and R&D expenditure have changed, and the amount of state support we receive has dropped sharply. It has also become more difficult to hire new people as we're no longer allowed to hire more replace-duty military personnel who work for a specific industry.
Data indicates it takes an average of 20 years for domestic SMEs to grow into mid-standing companies. But due to various regulations related to job creation, R&D, and investment, some either self-downsize or resist the temptation to grow at all.
According to our annual survey, 5.9% of mid-sized enterprises say they've looked into downsizing to an SME. Most of them said they were considering it due to the sharp reduction in tax benefits.
While Peter Pan syndrome in the economic sphere indicates there's plenty of foundational support measures for SMEs, experts say measures should be drawn up to help small businesses grow into mid-sized firms and for medium-sized companies to become conglomerates under a new tax break system as well as further government-led R&D support. To this end, Korea's Trade Ministry has announced a 5-year policy plan to nurture more than 80 mid-sized firms. However, experts say the government needs to seriously consider softening the level of regulations that stifle smaller firms and discourage them from growing, and thus hiring more people. Won Jung-hwan, Arirang News.
Shifting focus, Japan has once again stepped up its territorial claims against South Korea's own Dokdo Island. Issuing a revised version of its high school teaching manual on Tuesday, Tokyo's education ministry requires teachers to teach South Korea's Dokdo Island as Japan's Takeshima. Seoul said the claims were absurd and called on Japan to immediately withdraw that plan. Our Oh Jung-hee reports.
South Korea has sternly protested Japan's recent revision of its teaching manual, which intensifies territorial claims over South Korea's easternmost Dokdo Island. On Tuesday, Japan's education ministry posted a guide for high school teachers to teach, starting next year, that South Korea's Dokdo Island is Japanese territory and is called Takeshima. That's 3 years earlier than originally planned. Seoul called on Tokyo to immediately withdraw the plan.
The South Korean government deems it very regrettable that the Japanese government revised its teaching manual for high schools to strengthen unjust claims over South Korea's Dokdo Island and strongly demands an immediate withdrawal of the claims.
Seoul pointed out that Japan would be missing an opportunity to move forward by reflecting on past mistakes if Tokyo continues holding on to, quote, preposterous claims based on the, quote, wrong perception of history.
Dokdo Island is clearly South Korea's territory historically, geographically, and under international law. The South Korean government makes it clear that it won't tolerate any provocations over Dokdo Island and will continue to respond resolutely.
The foreign ministry also summoned Kohei Maruyama, a minister at the Japanese embassy, later on Tuesday. In March this year, Japan issued teaching guidelines that said high school textbooks should describe Dokdo Island as Takeshima starting 2022, but that schedule was moved forward by 3 years on Tuesday. Tuesday's guidelines referred to Dokdo Island as Japan's sovereign territory and claimed that South Korea is illegally occupying the islets. Such a change is not minor because the teaching guidelines are legally binding and high school textbooks must reflect what's stipulated in the guidelines. In the previous revision in 2009, there was no direct mention of Dokdo Island. 오정희, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump says there's no time limit on dismantling North Korea's nuclear weapons program, appearing to take a step back from previous demands for immediate denuclearization. Speaking to reporters at the White House on Tuesday, Trump said his administration is, quote, just going through the process, adding there's no speed limit to the North's denuclearization. President Trump struck a different tone earlier this year when he accused past U.S. administrations of engaging in step-by-step negotiations with Pyongyang, allowing the regime to buy time to build its nuclear arsenal. And North Korea has agreed to return to the United States the remains of 55 American troops who were killed during the Korean War, a result of Monday's working-level talks between the two sides. The Stars and Stripes newspaper reported on Tuesday, citing a U.S. official, that the remains will be flown out of the north either to Osan Air Base in South Korea or to Hawaii. And it is highly likely to happen on July 27, the 65th anniversary of the Korean War armistice. But the official added the date and the number of remains could change as North Korea and the U.S. are expecting another meeting very soon. And contrary to speculation, the meeting did not cover other issues such as formally ending the Korean War. South and North Korea's joint teams are off to a great start at the 2018 International Table Tennis Korea Open. The two unified teams in the mixed doubles came through their first matches on Tuesday night to move on to the next stage. Our Kan Hyung-woo tells us more.
Korea's two joint teams in the mixed doubles have won their first matches to advance to the round of 16 at the 2018 International Table Tennis Federation Korea Open in South Korea's central city of Daejeon. South Korea's Yoon Chung and North Korea's Choi faced Alvaro Robles and Galia Dvorak of Spain on Tuesday night. Having had only 2 days of practice together, the two Koreans were on the brink of elimination after they lost 2 of the first 3 sets. But they dug deep to bounce back and take the 4th set to force a decisive 5th. Yoo and Choi found themselves in a hole again, down 9-7, but scored 3 unanswered points to take the lead, eventually winning the match 13-11.
Quite honestly, I was overwhelmed when I hugged my partner Choi-il. I know it's not winning the tournament, but to me it was like winning the whole thing.
Another joint team in the mixed doubles, Jang Woo-jin and Cha Yo-sim, glided into the last 16 after their Mongolian opponents withdrew. Yoon Chung and Choi will take on South Korea's third-seeded duo Lee Sang-soo and Jeon Ji-hee in Thursday's round of 16. 장우진 and 차요심 will face off against the second seeds from Hong Kong. 간영우, Arirang News.
The South Korean government says it's investigating shipments of North Korean coal that was brought into the country via Russia last year, which would be a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Voice of America reported Tuesday that an expert panel under the UN Sanctions Committee filed in its annual report that the coal was shipped to Russia's port and unloaded at the South Korean ports of int'l and Pohang last October. Now, the shipments that transferred the coal were found to be operated by Chinese companies, and an official at Seoul's Foreign Ministry said the government was aware of the cases in October and will attempt to confirm the report. He also said South Korea is working closely with the international community to implement sanctions on North Korea. Japan and the European Union have put pen to paper on an economic partnership agreement that will eliminate nearly all tariffs on goods traded between the two sides. The deal could deal a blow to South Korean exporters that have benefited for many years from the price competitiveness afforded to them by the Korea-EU FTA. Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
Japan and the EU signed a landmark deal on Tuesday that will give birth to the world's largest open economic area. The ambitious trade pact will cover nearly 40% of global trade, 30% of the world's GDP, and over 600 million people. Upon signing the agreement, which comes amid the protectionism unleashed by U.S. President Donald Trump, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stressed that the deal shows the two parties' strong commitment to free trade.
There are currently rising concerns about protectionism globally. Within this context, I believe it is extremely meaningful that Japan and the EU are sending a message to the world about the importance of free and fair trade.
The deal will eliminate about 99% of the tariffs imposed on Japanese goods exported to the EU and 94% of tariffs on European imports into Japan. The president of the European Commission hailed the agreement, adding that it will make both parties strong.
But the impact of today's agreement goes far beyond our shores. Together, we are making, by signing this agreement, a statement about the future of free and fair trade. We are showing that we are stronger and better off when we work together.
The agreement is expected to take effect next March, following its ratification by the Japanese government as well as all of the EU's 28 member states. Once in effect, the deal will eliminate nearly all of the tariffs levied on Japanese goods within the European market, which means South Korean goods will no longer have the same price competitiveness within the market. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has made a complete U-turn on his comments about alleged Russian election meddling in the 2016 U.S. elections. At the White House on Tuesday, President Trump said he accepts U.S. intelligence agencies' conclusion that Russia interfered just a day after he sided with Russia on the matter during his summit with leader Vladimir Putin. For more on this and other news around the world, we turn to our Do Aram at the News Center. So, Aram, what exactly did Trump say?
Well, Trump shocked the world after Monday's joint press conference with Putin in Helsinki, embracing Putin's denial that Moscow meddled in America's 2016 elections. He said he didn't see why it would be the Russians. However, on Tuesday, he said he misspoke.
It should have been obvious. I thought it would be obvious, but I would like to clarify just in case it wasn't. In a key sentence in my remarks, I said the word would instead of wouldn't. The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't or why it wouldn't be Russia.
He also said he had full faith and support in U.S. intelligence agencies, but added that Russian interference had no impact on the 2016 election. He also declined to respond when asked if he would condemn President Putin. Although Trump tried to weather the storm of criticism he faced for Monday's press conference, the damage had already been done. US lawmakers from both sides of the aisle denounced Trump's decision to side with Putin, accusing him of siding with an adversary rather than his own country. They also called for tougher sanctions and other actions to punish Russia. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said the president's explanation was 24 hours too late and in the wrong place. Also on Tuesday in South Africa, former US President Barack Obama gave his view on the direction of global politics.
Look around. Strongman politics are ascendant, suddenly, whereby elections and some pretense of democracy are maintained, the form of it, but those in power seek to undermine every institution or norm that gives democracy meaning. We see the utter loss of shame among political leaders where they're caught in a lie and they just double down and they lie some more.
British Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit plan has narrowly survived a vote in British Parliament. Her government won by 307 to 301, defeating pro-EU Conservative lawmakers who wanted the UK to join a customs union with the European Union if May failed to reach a free trade deal with the bloc. She, however, lost a vote on regulating medicine after Brexit. May is trying to calm an in-house feud between pro- and anti-EU factions, which has led to several ministers resigning. The political unrest comes just 9 months before Britain leaves the EU. Japan's self-defense forces have sparked anger among Korean residents in France after Japanese troops marched through Paris's Champs-Élysées waving the rising sun flag. Japan's SDF was in Paris over the weekend as part of celebrations to mark 160 years of diplomatic relations between France and Japan, as well as Bastille Day. The controversial rising sun flag is viewed in Korea and other neighboring countries as a symbol of Japan's imperialism.
Turning to the intense heat wave gripping South Korea. We are only halfway through July, but it's already hot and staking, with the last several days seeing the temperatures well in excess of 30 degrees Celsius, and the nights aren't that much cooler. It has some experts asking, especially with the rest of July and the whole of August still ahead of us, whether this could be the hottest summer ever in Korea. Our Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
37.4 degrees Celsius in Kimmyeongni on Korea's southern Jeju Island. 36.6 degrees in the southeastern city of Daegu. Weather experts believe this summer may end up being the hottest on record, with consecutive days with scorching highs and tropical nights, which make it hard to get a good night's rest. Gangneung, ironically one of the venues for the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics, is currently experiencing a record number of back-to-back tropical nights. The eastern coastal city saw a nighttime high of 28.8 degrees earlier this week, and it was only moderately cooler on Tuesday night at 28 degrees. To be recognized as a tropical night, the temperature must hit at least 25 degrees during the night. But in the case of a super tropical night, the temperature must pass 30 degrees Celsius. The only time a super tropical night was recorded in Korea was on August 8, 2013, when Gangneung recorded 30.9 degrees. And with much of the summer still ahead of us, many predict that this could be the hottest on record. So what's causing the sweltering summer? Experts say the Tibetan anticyclone and the North Pacific anticyclone is bringing in dry heat from China and humidity from the North Pacific, while a heat dome has been formed over the Korean peninsula, causing the heat to be trapped. As a result, the number of heat-related casualties has been rising in Korea. Over 400 people have been hospitalized since May 20th due to heat-related conditions. The intense heat wave has also claimed the lives of 2 people. Many schools in Daegu and Gyeongsang-Bukdo province have even shortened their school hours, so students aren't required to be in class when the mercury is at its peak. Everyone is advised to drink plenty of fluids, while the elderly are advised to stay indoors, especially during the mid-afternoon. 이승재, Arirang News.
And as we just mentioned earlier in the newscast, today's weather is looking no different from yesterday and the day before. In fact, this summer is so hot that it could break the record for the country's hottest summer, which was set back in 1994. Now, for a check on the weather today, we go live to our Lee Ji-hyun at the Weather Center. So, Ji-hyun, they say this could actually be the hottest summer on record.
Good morning, Samit. Well, it seems so. Now, the year 1994 is considered to be the hottest summer since temperatures were first recorded in 1907. And under the effects of the intense heat dome and with the monsoon season coming to an early this year, it's more likely that we'll have a record-breaking summer this year, and it's going to be another sweaty day today. Heat wave alerts are in place for almost the entire nation, with warnings in place here in the capital. Fans and air conditioners are a must to keep cool. And blazing sunshine is in the forecast today. Seoul will get up to 34 degrees. Daegu, Gyeongju will be sweltering hot at 37 degrees this afternoon. And no sign of getting away from this sweltering heat. Early next week, Seoul will see highs in the upper 30s. So it comes as no surprise that the number of heat-related illnesses patients have tripled in just a week. And with more scorching temperatures ahead, it's essential that you take good care of yourself. That's all for now, but I will have more updates in our later newscast.
In other news, 5 Marines were killed in Korea's southeastern city of Pohang on Tuesday after their Marine Corps helicopter crashed shortly after taking off. According to South Korea's defense ministry, the MUH-1 chopper carrying 6 people went down from a height of about 10 meters and caught fire. 5 out of 6 Marines on board were killed at the scene, and 1 person was injured and sent to a nearby hospital. The military is looking into the exact cause of the accident. 4 former Delta employees are suing one of the world's largest airlines for discrimination, saying they were fired for speaking Korean at work. All 4 of the Korean-born women claim in a lawsuit that they were singled out and admonished for speaking Korean while working for Delta at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. Now, the women, all fired back in May of 2017, say other employees were not asked to limit their non-English communications. Now, they also suspect their termination is also related to the reporting of sexual harassment. Delta, however, insists the 4 were terminated for, quote, offering unauthorized upgrades, something the women say were standard, particularly for oversold flights, and that other agents who engaged in the same practices were not terminated. It's a discovery like something out of an adventure movie. A Russian battleship that sank 113 years ago in waters off Korea's Ullungdo Island has been located. The Dmitry Donskoy, believed to be carrying gold coins and bars said to be worth some $133 billion, was found earlier this week. Shinil Group, the Korean company that has been searching for the ship for years, announced a discovery and said it is working on lifting the wreckage. The company also said it plans to donate 1/10 of the treasure for the development of Ullungdo Island and also put additional 10% of gold coins toward the government's inter-Korean joint railroads projects with Russia as well. And that'll do it for us at the hour on Arirang News, but keep it tuned for more news updates coming up at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.
Paris est la ville qui a vu naître beaucoup d'artistes. C'est la ville où on peut réaliser ses rêves. L'art rapproche les gens. Et parfois, il peut aussi changer leur vie.
6 de 8 entre 8 et 15. Donc c'est du longueur.
Tout ce qui m'impressionne éveille les sens qui sont en moi. Les formes arrondies, carrées, les lignes fines et longues, elles m'ont complètement séduit. On dit que les amis se comprennent sans se parler. C'est la même chose pour l'art. On se comprend tous.
J'ai ramené un cadeau.
Non, t'as fait ça, c'est génial. Waouh. Ouais, c'est ma taille en plus. C'est écrit quoi là?
Alors en fait c'est marqué Achik Aljan Namata, qui veut dire il me reste encore un verre.
Ouais, je colle.
Et en fait c'est inspiré d'un film qui s'appelle Ajoshi et c'est Achik Aljan Namata. Et moi j'ai changé, je l'ai fait pour toi. Il y en a qui non?
Non, t'as
sans moi.
Non.
C'est du poulet. Tu vois, c'est très chaud, c'est très chaud.
Aujourd'hui, l'art est un nouveau monde dans lequel nous sommes entraînés.
La fin d'année? Ouais, parce que c'est
Changer les bébés.
Arirang. Venice, Hamburg, and Rotterdam. They're all world-renowned cities of water. In Korea, which city is worthy of the title City of Water? Korea